Good morning, people. Can you hear me? My name is Grecia Cázares. I'm an academic consultant in Richmond, Mexico, and I live in Monterrey. I'm in the northern part of Mexico. And I see that right now we have 221 people connected, and I've been reading your comments. I see people from Peru. I see people from Mexico City, Honduras. Good morning, welcome, and I hope you are watching this broadcast, this webinar in the safeness of your house. I don't know how you've been doing with this quarantine thing, but we have made ourselves busy here in the Richmond team with all of this webinar series that we've been offering you, and we hope you really have enjoyed yourself by watching this. So, Marta Carrasco, I read that you cannot see me. Um, what did you see? I mean, is it the like all black or I don't know. I don't know. This is just the fact that you can see me right now is just to introduce myself, so you can put a face on the voice. But don't worry if you cannot see me. As long as you can hear me loud and clear, that's fine for me. Okay. So I'm going to close my camera now. So but you can see what I am broadcasting in the that I'm showing my slides, right? I can see that you can see. So as long as you can see that, it's okay. So I'm going to close my camera now so we can start this thing. Okay. All right, guys. So if you have been following our webinars, you must be familiar with this dashboard, and you must know how to work with it. But for the newcomers, for the people who have whose webinar, whose this big webinar is the first one, I'm going to give a quick explanation of what you see in your dashboard. The first symbol is sort of blurry, but it's a microphone. And when the microphone is red, that means that people cannot hear you. That means the microphone is closed and you are muted. But if this microphone is green, we can hear everything you say. We can hear anything is around you. So be careful. And the second symbol, you will see that it's a little hand with an arrow pointing upwards. This means this arrow, well, this symbol can be used in case you want to make a question. Okay. Since there are a lot of people in the connected right now, it's going to be a bit difficult to keep up with all your doubts. However, I'm going to be opening the questions window from time to time to try to answer some of your questions. And if not, if you have really specific questions, you can send them to my email at the end of the session. Okay, I'm going to share my. I can. Yeah, I see that some people can hear me like as if with some interference. Um, you need to consider, people, that right now a lot of us, a lot of people are using the internet, and there's a lot of people connected to this platform. So we might expect these failures to happen. However, this webinar is being recorded. So in case if you have missed some little bits of the presentation, this is going to be recorded. Sorry. And you can check out the recording in the following days. Okay, so I'm going to proceed to explain the last area of the webinar's dashboard. This is for the questions you have. Now, anything you post in here, nobody can see it. I'm the only one who can see it. But due to the amount of people connected today, there are 343 people. It's kind of hard to keep up with this, so I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to start with this. So, okay. So the webinar's name is Now You're Talking. The purpose of this session is to give you ideas on how to develop try to develop speaking skills. I'm going to give you suggestions on speaking strategies and other aspects that involve developing, getting your students to speak in the classroom, because sometimes they are too shy or they are very insecure about the speaking skills. But fear not, teachers. I'm gonna give you some very useful suggestions for this. Okay, so to begin with this, I'm going to open a poll. I'm gonna launch this poll, and I'm gonna have it open for a minute. Okay, let me open my my stopwatch, my timer, sorry. So I'm going to put it in 1 minute. And for that during that minute, you will be voting on this poll. Here's the question. Okay, so what would you bring to a deserted island if you were stranded there for a year? A year without being able to get out from there. And in this island, there will be coconuts, there will be fish, and there will be fresh water. So you wouldn't have to worry about food during that time in the stranded island. So you can start voting. Okay. Okay, people are voting. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll right now. And here are the results. Okay. So most of you, well, you chose wisely, people. The 60%, 63% of the audience voted to bring with you a first aid kit. I wrote fist, sorry about that typo. It's first aid kit, a tent, and your favorite book series. Well, obviously, we're not going to take a smartphone or a tablet with endless battery because it's a stranded island, so they won't. It will be purposeless um, because you don't need the phone or a tablet because there's no Wi-Fi in there. So it will be pointless to bring it. This is an activity. This is an activity that can be carried out orally. So you can have your students discuss these options. In here, I have to do it with control answers because I cannot have you interact in real time. But you can do so with your students by posting, by showing them a question and having them give their opinion or what they think about this question. Okay, so there are other icebreakers that we're going to try right now. The first one is the alpha ball game. In here, this is like, I don't know if you ever played Basta. Okay, so you will sit, have your students sit on a circle, and then give them a category. So in here, students need to say a vocabulary related to food that starts with the letters in the alphabet. For example, food that starts with A will be apple. The next student will say bananas. The third student will say, I don't know, like I forgot something related to food with the C. But the students are going to be giving a vocabulary related to the categories we have here. This is very simple and also very enriching. You can even, for example, if you're working with a specific topic in your book, you can have your students elicit, okay, cucumber, thank you, coconut chips, excellent, carrot, yeah, I blacked out a bit, coffee, like the thing that I'm drinking right now. So as you can see, it is very engaging, and you can even add some challenge. There's a variation that I usually apply that is called the last man standing. In here, the challenge is that students uh, cannot repeat any words. Obviously, in here, it wouldn't be possible with the alpha ball game. But for example, with the last man standing, students cannot repeat words. So if a student repeats a word, obviously that person needs to go back. It will be out of the game, will be disqualified for the game. And the person who, thank you, celery, cream, cantaloupe, yes. And this kind of activity, obviously, the person who wins in the last man standing is the last man standing, the last student in there. Okay, the next activity, the complete procedure of the activities that I'm presenting you today are in the handouts. It's in the handout that I uploaded in the handout section. It's a PDF that you can download there. So you can have the complete procedure of these activities. Um, the next game, okay. Oh, it's my favorite one. I love tongue twisters. And we're going to try this activity all together. So in your houses, please try to say this tongue twister. We're going to try it out. Clean, clams, cram, in clean cans. Okay? If Stu shoes shoes, should Stu shoes the shoes he shoes? And the next one, green glass gloves glow greenly. Okay, so we're going to try to say this, we're going to try to practice these tongue twisters at home, okay? Now, when you have your students work with tongue twisters, sometimes it can get repetitive because sometimes we don't know what to do with them other than repeating it once again and again and again. So I use a die. I'm going to activate my camera well, later. I use a die to have my students practice with tongue twisters. Each die, or each side of the die, as you know, has a number, right? So what I did is that I assign a challenge to each number of the die. So the challenges that we have here is that, for example, if the student gets number 1, the student needs to say the tongue twister as fast as he or she can. That's like pretty traditional. If the student gets 2, the student gets to say the tongue twister backwards. So it's challenging. Number 3 needs to say the tongue twister 3 times without stopping. Number 4 needs to say the tongue twister in a British accent. Number 5, in a high-pitched voice. And number 6, with a low-pitched voice. So this activity is very enjoyable. And right now we're going to try it. Okay. I'm going to select a random person, and I'm going to open this person's microphone. Okay. Okay, I have Itzel Murua. I'm going to activate your microphone. Okay, well, I cannot open her microphone. Well, I'm going to try somebody else. Let's see, Javier Montes de Oca. Okay, I could open your microphone. Hello, Javier.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. You ready for this challenge?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to roll the die.
Okay.
Okay, you got 4. So you need to say the tongue twister with your best British accent.
Well, that's a good one. Because
Okay.
Okay. I
All
don't have
right.
much
You ready?
practice with the British accent,
No,
but
no, no. Don't
I'll
worry.
try.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. You ready?
Yeah.
You're ready. Okay.
Clean clams, cram in clean cans.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
not
you. Thank
sure
you.
if that was British, but
But you try. But you try.
I
Okay.
tried.
So now I'm gonna mute you to select another person. Thank you very much, Javier.
You're welcome.
All right, now I'm going to select another person. Let's go to the R. I'm going to choose a lady. I got Rosie Lagunas. Rosie, oh, where are you, Rosie Lagunas? Okay, here you are. I'm going to activate your microphone. You there, Rosie? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
Very good. So you ready for the challenge?
1 second.
Okay, I'm
So,
going. Sure.
oh. What is the challenge? Sorry.
Is that I'm going to roll a die and you have to say the tongue twister with the challenge assigned to the number of the die. Okay? So I'm gonna roll the die. So you got 5. So you need to say the tongue twister I have on screen with a high-pitched voice, like the highest you can. You ready?
Ready.
There you go.
Clean plants, screen, and a clean can.
Very good. Way to go. Excellent. Thank you very much, Rosie, for participating.
Welcome.
Now I'm going to mute your microphone. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
So you can try this activity with all kind of students. You can apply it with students in elementary, students, teenagers, with adults, and as you can see, it's very engaging, and students have lots of fun. Okay, now we're going to continue. I'm gonna okay. Okay. So the next activity, I have people wanted to participate. Maybe you're not going to participate in this one, but I have other activities where I'm going to open your microphones. So the next one is positive, negative, crazy. You know, right now we are all in quarantine in our houses due to coronavirus. So I know this. I know if we have people hearing us from Ecuador, well, really, I know you're having it like a rough time with this situation, and we're really sorry. But I want you to try to share with me. I'm going to open the microphones again. Something positive in your life that happened due to this situation we're living right now. Something negative, well, obviously the negative part is all the sick people, etc. But something like personal, that's something that happened to you that is negative related to the coronavirus situation, and something crazy, something that you never expected would happen from a coronavirus, or like coronavirus, like Cardi B would say it. Now I'm going to go back to the attendees section. Okay, I have Luis Solorzano wanted to participate. So, Luis Solorzano, you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, loud and clear. So,
So,
Luis,
tell me.
tell me something positive that happened in your life, or something that you see that that is positive in your life due to the coronavirus situation.
Okay, something positive is that, well, so I'm Luis Solorzano, I'm from Ecuador, Santo Domingo City. So he, in my parallel life, during that situations, I can share with my family here at home. So it's so incredible because we are just in our jobs, and now we can share more times and doing some games to be that part time a little funny, because it is a little bothersome time when we are here at home.
Yeah, so you get some more time that you probably didn't have while you were working, to bond with your family members, right?
Yeah,
Very good. Thank you very much, Luis. So I'm going to mute you again.
thank you.
Thank you. And I'm gonna go with, okay, Saida Melissa. I'm going to open your microphone. Hello, Saida. Can you hear me? Saida, you there? Okay. I think she's not there, so I'm gonna go with Xiomara Mosquera. Oh, I cannot open your, so I'm gonna go with the other. So Xiomara. Oops. I cannot open these
Hello.
people's. Hello, Xiomara Melissa.
Yes.
Okay, give me something negative that you see from this situation besides the sick people and all the chaos with the economy.
Well, something negative for me is that people are starving, so I feel so sad.
Yeah, that's really, 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 really bad. Thank you very much, Xiomara.
You're welcome.
And for the crazy, I'm going to open Monica. Monica Lure, or I cannot open your microphone, so I'm gonna go with. Oh, I cannot open. Okay, I'm gonna try somebody else. Okay, Mayra Alejandra Dusan. Hello, hello, Mayra. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to choose on somebody else. Mariela Marcias. Can you hear me? Oh my goodness, what happens with the crazy? Okay, well, people, something crazy that has happened to you due to the COVID-19 situation. If you can share it to me, okay, Marta Carrasco, it says, okay, I'm gonna, Marta, okay, hello, Marta.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay,
Great.
share something crazy that has happened to you during this situation.
Oh, okay. Well, hello everyone. I'm from Los Mochis, Sinaloa, Mexico. So it's the north part of the country. So something really crazy that has happened here is that the beer plants are closing. So everybody rushed to the stores to buy loads and loads of beer. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but there's like a lot of people buying a lot of beer. And for me, that's really crazy. It's even crazier than the toilet paper situation.
Yeah, people are really, really in need of beer. Yeah, the same happened
I
here in
know.
Monterrey. So
Well,
yes,
yeah.
people
Well, north part of the country, what can you do?
just drinking beer, I guess. So okay, thank you
Yes.
very much. Thank you very,
Thank you.
very much.
Bye.
I'm going to mute your microphone now. So this is another activity that you can try out in your class, and as you can see, it doesn't really need like much planning, just choosing the right situation to trigger all of these responses. Okay. The next, well, now we're going to go to the theoretical part. So I want you to reflect a little bit on the questions I have here on screen. Why do you think your students are so shy? Or why don't they volunteer so much to answer during class discussions? Why don't they share ideas when nominated? Um, why don't they interact in pairs? Sometimes when we set pairs, the introduction is not as optimal as we wish. Sometimes they get distracted or they don't engage into the topic as much as we wish, but and so on. Am I putting too much pressure on them so early in the term? How can I stop them from speaking in their L1? Should I always stop them from speaking in their L1? These two last questions are very, very controversial in ELT, but I'm going to show you some strategies to try to tackle these problems. Okay, how to deal with shyness. One strategy is that you should be very careful on the team formation. For example, what you can do to set your students is to, instead of using larger teams, you should go for pair work. Pair work in the form of interviews, debates, or role plays. You can also ask students to participate randomly, similar to what I did today. However, you can, for example, something that I did while I was teaching is that I would take the attendance list and just set my finger like randomly on the list, and that person, that the name that was under my finger will be the person that will participate. And in this case, students don't have any idea who's going to participate. And ask simple questions, especially if you see that the student is like really anxious or is really stressed about being nominated. Try to keep it simple, and try not to put a lot of pressure on your students, because that is going to demotivate him or her. Something else that is good to try is to try to listen. Always listen to what your students are saying, so you can so you don't need to ask them to participate again or to repeat what they were saying, especially if you see that the student is very shy. And also, this is something very difficult for teachers, not to interrupt them. We need to let them finish what they are saying, because remember, try to put yourself in your students' shoes. They are not comfortable, they are probably struggling, they are feeling stressed. So try to listen to them without any interruptions or corrections. Be objective when correcting. Teachers, we tend to overcorrect our students. That's something that is like something I needed to work a lot on, not to overcorrect my students. So for example, if you're working with elementary students, like in the elementary levels, like A1 or A, um, and if you ask your students to communicate something that they did during the weekend, but you haven't presented the past tense, and your student expresses in present, you shouldn't be correcting your student in something that you haven't presented yet. So try to be objective on your corrections. Other is that you should give students more control. Try not to be, for example, something that we tend to do as teachers is that sometimes when they don't, we try to be like very like controlling on what we want them to say. But no, I mean, you should anything that the students say, as long as he or she says it, express it in English, I think it's okay. Now, for the L1, the L1 is like very controversial. um Back in the university, I was taught that as teachers we should leave the L1 for only for to the minimum. We should use it the minimum in our classes. This might work with for example, children that were, since they are not they are like sponges and they are getting all of this input. But for example, with adults it's very different. Adults will always feel the need to use the L1 because they are I don't know, they are like more self-aware of their skills. So for example, with adults, what you need to do is to give students the language they need. Still, I will keep the L1 to the minimum, but if you give your students the language in English that they need, they will feel the less need to use the L1. For example, you can do this through prompts placed around the classroom, for example, with posters with classroom language. If you are working with a specific grammar point, you should always make this language visible for the student and available for him or for her to use it. So if you see that your student is using the L1, but he or she has the input to the information to use it in English, you should say, okay, thank you for saying in expressing it in Spanish, but we already saw that language. So if you look at there, if you look at that poster next to the blackboard, you can express it in English if you use the language we have there. So uh, in obviously there are cases where we need to use the L1, but I should leave it for the minimum because in the classroom, well, it's the only instance in their life possibly where they get to use the target language. Also, something else that you could do is to determine L1 free periods. For example, when working with projects or when working in teams, those are the times, the instances where students can use the language in the target language, which is English, naturally. So you can set a time, for example, 30 minutes, where students shouldn't be speaking in the L1. And maybe you can, I don't know, ask, give not a punishment, but there will to be a consequence for speaking the L1. I don't know. If I hear somebody speaking Spanish during this L1 free period, the person is going to, I don't know, bring the snacks for all the classroom the next day. I don't know. You decide what to do. But you should determine periods in the class where nobody should be speaking Spanish or Portuguese if we have people from Brazil in here. And the last one is to keep the classroom language at sight. This is what I was telling you about giving students the language they need. If you want, try to keep prompts of and with language the students can use commonly. For example, simple past, simple present, uh, polite requests, modals, etc. Keep them outside in your classroom so students can always see that there's a reference for what they are saying. And in the last one, it says effective interaction. How can we get our students to interact effectively? The first one is that they learn the language through doing a task. This could be through projects, through something hands-on, so students can actually apply what they are learning in class. Another one is encourage the use of comprehension check while students interact. This could be, for example, conversation and answers like, could you repeat it? Was that, is this what you tried to say? And probably try to rephrase the statement that the other student said. Another include jigsaw activities where some student would have the information the other doesn't. Now we have TPR learning. TPR is also very useful, especially when you are going to teach vocabulary. This works best with children, but I have applied it with adults and it really works. So, okay, I have people, L1. The L1 is the mother tongue. That would be Spanish or Portuguese, or in some places is French. So it's the first language of the person. Okay. So jigsaw activities also are very useful when we want our students to interact. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Now, something that our students feel insecure about is proficiency. Sometimes this happened a lot, especially with the adults. I remember having this group where these students were like didn't have like any instruction in English. They knew a few things in English, but it was like an introduction level. So these students were very insecure about using the language, using English in the classroom. So they always wanted to speak Spanish because that's how they could communicate. So something that I did is that once I started presenting the the language, they I asked them to try to apply what they were they were they learned and try to express in whichever form they could, but as long as they did it in English, it would be okay. So sometimes, obviously, at the beginning, they committed a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of errors, but eventually they started to get the hang of it. They started to be a little bit more fluent, but because I was not focusing so much on the proficiency, but because I wanted to be fluent. But once the students are are already fluent in the language, we need to look for proficiency and inaccuracy. So what is proficiency to begin with? Is language proficiency or linguistic proficiency is the ability of an individual to speak or perform in a language. So students will have different kinds of proficiency, and once the students are somewhat proficient or that have reached certain level, then we need to start focusing on accuracy. But the first thing is that they try to reach a certain level of proficiency. And okay, these are some strategies that you can do to try to work with proficiency in your classroom. First is sign a contract on the first day of school, promising to use only the target language within the classroom walls. It is very important that the teacher and the students monitor their peers, so this contract is followed. Something else that you can do is begin each day with an interpersonal speaking activity. And some of these activities could be, for example, two-way spontaneous interaction, maybe by saying good morning, how you doing, or maybe by using questions like the one I posted at the beginning of the session, or just any random conversation, as long as it is done in English. Also, monitoring your partner's comprehension, following up, reacting, and maintaining the conversation. This is try to encourage the students to continue with the conversation. For example, if you see that your student is sharing something to you in English, you should encourage the person to continue speaking, obviously, as long as it's in English. Indicating interest through body language and eye contact. If your student see that you are distracted, or that your body language is not is telling him that you're not paying attention, this is going to be very demotivating for the student, and he or she will probably not engage in another conversation with you. And another one is focusing on the message and asking for clarification if needed. This could be done by rephrasing what the person say. Instead of asking him in Spanish, you could say, okay, did I understand well? Did you say, did you wanted to say this? Did you want to say this? I'm sorry. And try to rephrase what the other person say to to clarify the message. And memorize, it's something that I shouldn't recommend if you want to work with proficiency, is memorize dialogues, uh, or one person asking all the questions. That is not, the students are not going to practice with proficiency because only one person will be the one doing all the questions. And memorization, for example, memorizing a dialogue is not ideal for this because it's too controlled. Another thing that you shouldn't do is strict turn taking or ignoring your partner's comprehension. Something that is very common when, I don't know, when we are distracted, or I don't know if this has happened to you, that somebody is saying something and yet didn't really understand what the other person say, and that you just say like, ah, yes, or you just laugh, but you didn't understand a thing of what the other person did, what the other person said. So that is really bad, because the other person, sometimes they feel that that you didn't really understood, and that you were just, in Spanish we say le estabas dando el avión, and that's really, really rude. Something else that you shouldn't do is ignore your partner in order to say something, like constant interruption, or when your partner is saying something and you just ignore it, and then you started talking about something else. That's also really rude. And something else that you shouldn't do is giving up if you didn't understand. So if you didn't understand, try to continue explaining or trying to get this feedback from the other person to see if you really, really understood. Now I'm going to open the questions for a bit to see if there's anything here. On purpose, I write the vocabulary I previously introduced, and I love correcting myself. Okay. Is this, yes, it is to work with fluency and proficiency when we want our students to get them to talk. And in here we are making a difference of what is an interpersonal activity and what is not an interpersonal activity. So we can apply this in our classrooms. Should I let students use L1 in class? Is this right? Only, I would use it only when it's necessary, when you really, really, really see that there's no comprehension at all. Maybe you should do, maybe you should find a word or a match in Spanish that could be similar to what you are explaining. Something that I did is, for example, when the students were speaking a lot of Spanish or were having troubles with certain vocabulary or grammar point, is that the next day I would do, maybe for 10 or 15 minutes, I would start my class with maybe a review of that grammar point, of that vocabulary, and try to find matching, for example, exponents in Spanish that will be similar to those I wanted them to comprehend. But honestly, I would, it's not good when you get your students to speak like a lot of Spanish, because this is the only moment where they will get to practice the target language, in this case English. I have wondered the same when college are asked to give their opinion or to participate. Okay, I see there are not more. While exposing in teams, how to manage students who feel shy and don't dare to go through. In here, maybe if you see that the student is way too shy, maybe at the beginning, you could ask the student to expose or to present just to you, so you can evaluate the student, and and eventually try to incorporate it to the team. But if the student is way too shy, he or she should be presenting to you first, and you can do all the grading there while he's presenting to you, and then maybe if he is willing to do so, to present with the team, but he will already have his or her grade. Proficiency is the level the student has. For example, the tests that we get in for example, TOEFL or flyers and these exams are proficiency exams. So they measure the level you have in English. And fluency is to speak, just to be able to speak without stopping and all of that. How can you help a shy student? Well, shy students we need to work with self-confidence first, and then try them to get them to speak. But shy students are a challenge because you need to work them like slowly. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna continue. Okay, so these are some conversations enhancers that we can use, we can teach our students to try to keep the conversation fluent. Like, really, wow, that's interesting, no kidding. And when you teach conversation enhancers, that gives the students a lot of opportunity to learn slang, because there are enhancers that are particular for American English. There are others that are particular to British English, others to Australian. So if you want to enrich the students' vocabulary, you can teach them conversation enhancers from a particular English dialect. Wait. Okay. Now, there's another strategy that you can try. This is called 7 turn-taking strategies. The first one is to speak, then ask. In pairs, students discuss a topic. Student 1 gets the ball rolling with his/her opinion, then ask his/her partner a question. So this is like a turn-taking conversation. Number 2, use conjunctions. Teacher writes down a list of conjunctions of the board. Students say something and add more info by using a conjunction. Number 3, phrases for agreeing or disagreeing. I agree, disagree with you. I'm afraid I can't, don't agree with you. I couldn't agree more. This is really, really useful when you don't want your students to say yes or no. For example, we're going to use this in another activity later. So these phrases are really good when you don't want them to say yes or no. Number 4, do you like that idea? What do you think? Does that make sense to you? So this is when you want our students to share their opinions. Fillers for pause. Let me see, let me think. The thing is, what I mean is, this is to try to avoid the oh, so that might be confusing. So you can, instead of doing those sounds, you can ask your students to use these fillers for pauses. Number 6, avoiding interruptions. There are X things I would have to, although I, even though I, because they. So try to have your students say these phrases to avoid interruptions. And number 7, fluency over accuracy. Keep corrections to a minimum. In fact, consider simply let them speak and giving them feedback at the end. This works wonders with beginners, with students that are insecure. When we want to build up confidence in our students, we should focus more on the fluency than the accuracy. Once the students have reached certain level of proficiency, once you consider your student is ready to receive this correcting feedback, then is when you should do it. and it is very important not to expose the students as well. I would do this feedback maybe at the end of the class or the next day by saying, okay, while I was moving around the classroom, I could hear this. I could hear you were saying this phrase like so. So I would use those samples of language to do the corrections, the pertinent corrections, without exposing the students. How can I motivate? Oh, this is a good question. How can I motivate a student with language disorders to participate in my class? How can I correct pronunciation without hurting his or her feelings? Um, with this kind of students, it is very important to do it privately. Um, uh, with people with this kind of disorders, we need to build up a lot of self-confidence. So I will focus a lot on their students' fluency, and then do all the correction privately, just with this person. And this student will need a lot of support, maybe with the pronunciation. You can model the pronunciation, you can have the student repeat it a lot, but just to you, not in front of the rest of the class, because that makes them too exposed and too self-aware. So that's something that you could do with this person. I have this. My golden rule in classroom is that once they cross the door frame, they have to switch on to English. As long as they see you and hear you speaking L2, they will follow your lead. Teachers are in charge creating the proper environment for them to feel encouraged to speak English. Yes, if they hear English, they will be motivated to speak English. Thank you very much, Carolina. That's a great idea. How to connect students with low level and besides with special needs. The same I explained with the student with language disorders. Try to focus on the fluency, not so much on the accuracy. This is to raise the students' self-confidence, and eventually they will get to the accuracy. Don't worry about that. Okay. So the next one is eliminate activities which you ask where you ask here I have a typo, where you ask individual students questions. Instead, promote pair work and mind the members in each team. What do I mean by minding the members in each team? Not to pair friends, because when you pair friends, they get too distracted and they are not going to do what you are asking. Instead, give students the choice to choose their group, obviously, by considering that the members. You can do random grouping by colors, numbers, etc. You can select the groups yourself. In here, you need to be very careful not to pair friends, because that's not going to work. They are going to get too distracted. Then some interpersonal activities. These are some interpersonal activities. The first one is speed date. I don't know if you ever tried a speed date. In a speed date I'm sorry, students are arranged one in front of the other. The purpose in here is that one row will be moving and the other won't. So students are going to be participating at all times, and they will be speaking. Something that will give you a little bit more control on the speed date is by using prompt questions like the ones I have here. For example, what's your favorite piece of clothing you own or have owned? I would show this question maybe with a slide, with a PowerPoint slide, and have my students discuss this question for 1 or 2 minutes, and then I will change it for the next one. What hobby would you get if time and money weren't an issue? So again, your students will be discussing these questions for 1 or 2 minutes, and then you will change it to the next one. What would you prefer? Why would your perfect room look like? Mine is a room with lots of sun, lots of plants around, and a very comfortable bed. That will my perfect room look like. And again, the students will be one row of the students will be moving with each question, so students will be able to discuss all of these questions for 1 or 2 minutes with everyone. And the last question: what would you sorry? How often do you play sports? Okay, so let me open the questions. Yes, my advice is to use open questions, because if you use yes no questions, the students are going to answer yes or no. So what we want our students uh, is to get them to speak, to be fluent. And obviously, during these 2 minutes that while the students are speaking, they should be using the enhancers, like saying, "Oh, really? I agree with that. Oh, that happens to me. That happened to me as well." I don't know. So this is for students to engage in conversation that probably will happen in real life. And another activity is to use interviews. And for example, I think the activity that comes in the handout is to try to this is like a role play activity where you can select a person to be a famous character. I don't know, I don't know, somebody, I don't know, Quentin Tarantino. I'm sure you all know him. Uh, so you can have all the group to interview, to ask questions questions that they would ask to this famous person. Another activity, another variation for an interview is to have a famous or somebody to be interviewed in your class. I don't know, maybe a policeman or mm, someone that has done something remarkable in your community. You can invite this person and have your students interview this this guest. Um, and next one. Uh, these are other things to consider to foster English proficiency and motivate students to speak. Here we have more activities. First is to use interesting topics. You can controversial topics work wonders, because there will be always an opposite, a side that would be agree with would agree with this topic, others that won't. So controversy in the classroom really motivates students to speak. You can also use current situations. For example, the one that I use is a coronavirus, but you can use, for example, topics related to ecology, economy, or maybe just, you know, your students, you know what they like, you know what they don't like, and maybe you can use the topics they are exposed to have them to use it as discussions. Also, make your presence known. When you set your students in teams, it's very important that you don't go to your seat just to do some checking papers or whatever. It is very important that you are moving around the classroom, monitoring what your students are saying. Something that I used to do is I would always have post-its or in a pen with me while doing this, so I would be taking notes of what my students are saying. So this also gives you sample of their real language. They will give you clear example of their mistakes, so you can later do the corrections. And you can even stay with a particular team for a moment, um, just to hear what they are saying and to participate with them. That also motivates your students when you participate in their conversations. And modeling is vital. Remember, teachers, you are the source of language in the classroom. So modeling the language is very important because it will give your students the sorry, a reference of what they should say, the way they should say it, and also the kind of language they will be using or vocabulary they will be using. So it is very important that you try to model what they want to say. And for example, if you see that your student is trying to say something in Spanish, you can model the desirable structure and then encourage your student to say it in English. So modeling also helps a lot. Uh, this is something that might not like to people who are very controlling, is when we are language teachers, we are teaching a language, so we don't expect our classes to be all quiet. So we need to be comfortable with organized chaos, people speaking but not yelling, people mingling around the classroom but not running or not uh, acting as crazy people. So we need to feel comfortable with this organized chaos. And in order to do so, we need to have clear objectives of our activities. If we are going to do mingling activity, you should always have that controlling factor. For example, the question, some keeping track of time, or a challenge. I don't know, but it is this organization will be provided by us by using questions, using limits like time, etc. Now we're going to do some activities in case you didn't have you need more ideas. I'm going to read some of your comments. A good way to encourage elementary kids to speak English is to grant one student that I speak English at work weekly and maybe give them an extra point. Yes, 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 yes. Some schools have their strategies. I remember many years ago, I was in a school that had this money. The school mascot was a dragon. So this money, this currency was called dragon money. So we teachers were given like large amounts of dragon money. So every time we heard a student saying something in English, or something that was seen during class, like a particular grammar point, and a student use it naturally in a conversation, I would give this person dragon money. So the students were very motivated by this dragon money, because I remember they were like every 3 months or something, the school would open a dragon store. So in this dragon store, they would buy things with their dragon money. So students were like really motivated by they were very eager and looking forward to spend their dragon money in the dragon store. And for example, every time I was very strict with this dragon money policy, because when I heard my students speaking Spanish, I would take the one dragon money, yes, a dragon money from them, and put it in like a swear jar, but it was like a Spanish jar. So I would put the dragon money in there. So And at the end, I always told them that I would use that all the dragon money I collected from them to spend it myself in the dragon store. Obviously, I never did it. And they were first graders and they got to speak a lot of English. And more ideas, teachers. Okay, remember what I was telling you about using phrases to avoid saying yes or no? Okay, we're going to practice it today. So I have these statements and you're going to tell me whether you agree or not, but without saying yes or no. You cannot say yes or no. You need to find another way to say that you agree or you don't agree. I'm going to open 2 people because we're running out of time. We're gonna have 2 people participate in this activity. Okay, I'm gonna choose somebody from the top. Okay, I have Noelia. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Noelia. How are you?
Good, and you?
Great, great. Now, Noelia, without saying yes or no, you need to tell me homework is harmful.
Okay.
Without saying yes or no. Is
Okay.
homework harmful?
Let me think. Without saying yes or no. Can I say I'm agree?
Well, I agree. I think it's okay. But why do you agree? Why? Why do you agree that homework is harmful? Sorry.
Well,
Why
in
do you
these
agree with that?
days, it is harmful because now the students are going to be like in these classes. Also, it is going to be a little bit more difficult for them um, to be more in more classes. I don't know if you understand me, because we have so many classes, we have so many subjects that they are going to study in a computer and have a lot of homeworks. Maybe for the students it's going to be a little bit messy or maybe difficult for them.
Yes, in these days it's going to be difficult to keep track of all the homework or try to check everything to see if it's correct. So maybe in these
Uh-huh.
times we should mind the amount of homework we assign. That's right.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much, Noelia.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye. I'm going to
Bye.
mute your microphone now. Now, I'm going to open the other statements. I'm gonna choose. Let's choose a gentleman. Okay, I have Angel Felipe. Hello, Angel.
Hello, how you doing?
Fine, and you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. Now, I have 2 statements for you. You're gonna choose one, and you are gonna tell me if you agree or you disagree without saying yes or no.
Okay,
You choose
with
the one that
those,
you want.
okay. We say we are becoming too dependent on computers. In this case, in this time, I think we should be, because we don't have other way to teach our students. So I think computers, I agree with this statement. In my case, I'm becoming too dependent because technology is a good tool for students to learn. So my answer is I agree.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Now I'm gonna mute you. Great. So these are just some examples of what how you can have your students uh, be a little bit more expressive on a matter without saying yes or no. Then the next activity is phrase word charade. I'm going to explain this to you. This is for students to guess certain vocabulary. The first word, this is in here you can have students you can have them in set them in pairs or do it as a whole class activity. But for in this activity, there are 3 rounds. The first round, all the words will have to be guessed through a phrase. In the second round, the words will need to be guessed through a word. And in the third round, the word should be guessed through movement. Okay. Now I'm going to. We have these 3 images. The first one, phrase. So in here, the student should say a phrase that is related to this word. The phrase that I chose is, sorry. The phrase, for example, where it's for moon, the word is going to be for this word, and the charade is going to be for this word. In the first round will be with a phrase. The one that I chose is fly me to the moon. So students should guess that the word is moon. In the second word, I would use this, I would say the word book. And what does the book have? Pages. So the word that I want my students to guess is the word pages. Sorry, it's the word book. The word that I want my students to guess is book. And what does a book have? Pages. And in the last round, I want my students to guess this word. And for that, I will do an action. So I will do the drinking action. So my students guess that the word is water. So at the end, the words that I want my students to say are moon, a book, and water. And you can adapt this with any kind of vocabulary you have. If you have a specific vocabulary to go over, you can do so through this activity. Okay. The next, okay, for the next is, oh, sorry. What should we teach in order to help them speak? Listening skills. If our students don't know how to listen or are struggling a lot with listening, they are not going to be able to speak. This is the first thing we need to teach them. Skills that you need to teach to students is listening, highlighting the importance of listening attentively to another person when he is speaking. Also, body language. And for body language, we can teach them this strategy, which is slant. Sit up straight, listen, answer and ask questions, not to show interest or use a language enhancer, and track the speaker by doing what? Asking questions, asking for clarification, maybe saying whether you agree or you disagree, etc. So what we're doing right now is to recap everything that we have seen today. And always be polite. We need to teach them etiquette. Think about your attitude. It's acting politely. It's noticing when the bad attitude is rising up within you. Is listen to and look at your conversation partners. A person can learn a lot about how someone else's feel by looking at their facial expressions. This is very important. If you see that the person is looking elsewhere or is starting to fidget a lot, this means that the person is not engaged with what you're saying. Maybe you are talking too much. Maybe what you're saying is not relevant for the other person. So you need to help teach your students to read all of this body language. Keep your voice calm. Try not to yell. Sometimes I do yell, but that's because I'm from the north. And watch your body language. Well, it's okay to speak with your hands. Using forceful gestures, pointing at hitting are considered aggressive. Well, I think hitting is considered aggressive everywhere. And avoid negative responses. Answering people with sarcasm, insults, or lack of seriousness is another way to send wrong messages to someone with whom you are speaking. Sarcasm is good only when the person you are talking to is very familiar, but you shouldn't use it with strangers. Okay, can you please present this slide again? Yes, let me finish with this, and then I will go back to the. Let me go back to that slide. Slant. This is slant. Is sit up straight, listen, answer, and ask questions, and not to show interest, and track the speaker's message. It's practically what we have been saying, that you shouldn't interrupt, that you should be attentive to what the other is saying, and try to look at the person's body language. And well, teachers, with this, this is the last part of our session. We're very close to the end. And well, I want to finish with this phrase. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. So we teachers, we have a big responsibility because we work with human beings. And the fact that they are motivated or they become demotivated by the language is our responsibility. So it is very important that we try to make our best when we are teaching. And well, I hope all of these strategies have help you in your classes when you are teaching speaking, which I think is rather difficult because we work with a lot of emotions in here. This is my contact data. If you wish, if you want further information, or if you just want to make a comment about this session, you can send me an email to gcasares at clb.richmondelt.com, and I will be very happy to answer. And if you had problems with I don't know, with sound or anything during this session is being recorded and will be in these two channels: gotostage.com/channel/Richmond webinars, or gotostage.com/channel/Richmond teacher training. If you don't find the video, you can send me an email and I will gladly send you the link. So thank you. I'm gonna open my camera just to say goodbye. That's me. Thank you very much for staying here with me today. I hope these activities are like useful to you. And well, thank you very much, and I hope to see you again anytime soon. So thank you very much, guys. Have a great day and stay safe. Stay at home, please.